poodling around us. We're going international today for our very first foray outside of the UK, looking at something extraordinary to do in Italy. As discussed previously, an event called World Topiary Day, held at Levenshall Gardens in Cumbria, is one of my babies, one of my PR inventions to help raise the profile of the world's oldest topiary garden. To my absolute joy, gardens around the world now celebrate this day. But my greatest joy, perhaps, being the Italy lover that I am, was that we this year managed to catch the eye of an amazing Italian garden, the Monumental Gardens of Valsanzibio. Once I viewed these gardens online and heard that they wished to celebrate, I couldn't resist recording a podcast with the owner, Armando Pizzoni Ardemani. Listen to our hugely inspiring and uplifting chat, and I'm sure you, like myself, will be wishing to head off to paradise very soon. Good afternoon, Armando. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. Good afternoon to you. Buongiorno a voi.
Grazie. Although the Monumental Gardens of Valsanzibio were voted the most beautiful garden in Europe in 2007 and are known as the Small Versailles, some of our listeners may not necessarily know of them. So please could you tell us exactly where in Italy they are located?
Yes, we are located in the middle of the northeast of Italy. Let's say more or less between Verona and Venice, that I think everybody knows it. Yes. And in the Euganeian Hills, there are some some hills of volcanic origin, placed not very far away from Padua, 18 kilometers from Padua, and as I told you, between Verona and Venezia.
So a very beautiful part of the world.
Yes, well, that's all relatives, but in my opinion, yes.
Yes. So in which year were the gardens founded, please, and by who? And what was the reason for them being founded?
Okay, the gardens were founded, or better, the beginning workers started in 1665, and they were made or wanted by the Barbarigo family, an important Venetian family of the time. The reason they made this garden was because in 1631, the family left the Palace of Venice and got refuge in Valsanzibio, where they already owned the land and some houses and some country houses, because the Valsanzibio is actually the name of the Valle di Sant'Eusebio, Valley of Saint Eusebio, from which Valsanzibio, so it was a fishery valley. You arrived here by boat in the old time. So they came here to escape the Black Plague of 1630-31. And once they were in Valsanzibio, they made a solemn vow to God that if they were going to be saved, they would have done something magnificent and important to glorify the name of God. And since the Black Plague never reached Valsanzibio, but stopped 7 kilometers from us, the vote were granted. And so if you're religious, thanks to God, otherwise just they were very lucky. And so they escape and they decide to make this allegorical and symbolic garden.
Yes, and you've said there is a strong religious element to the garden, isn't there? And lots of symbolism in there. And I think that was very much the intention of a gentleman called San Gregorio Barbarigo, who was the son of the family.
Exactly. The first son of the family, the Cardinal Gregorio Barbarigo, then Bishop of Padua, and after he died, he was declared also saint by the Catholic Church. He was the one inspiring the allegory and symbolism of this place. He was the counselor of the Pope of the time in Alexander the Seventh, Papa Chigi. And so in 1656, he was in Rome. And in that occasion, he met Luigi Bernini, the architect and fountain expert of the Vatican and of the Bernini family. He was the younger brother of Gian Lorenzo Bernini, the one bringing water to all the fountain that the brother was making. And the cardinal decided he was the right person to make the plan and the project of the garden that his father wanted to do here in Valsanzibio. And so to him, he commissioned a garden full of water games and fountain, because that was the expertise of Luigi Bernini, but also a garden with an allegorical path of salvation to fulfill the solemn vow made by the family more than 30 years before.
And this starts, I think, doesn't it, at a place called Diana's Pavilion?
Exactly. Yes, that was the main entrance to the state in the late 1600s by boat, by water from Venice. And that important Barocco doorway is also the beginning of this allegorical path of salvation that goes after all through the garden until the square of the Revelation that is in front of the main house, but is the final goal of this journey. Of course, there is a lot of things in between because there are, if you want to do it very, very fast, but there is after the Pavilion of Diana, you encounter the fissure of the river with the passive purification by water, allegorically, of course. Then there is the fissure of the wind, another passive purification by air. Then there is you are in the middle of the garden where the Bernini made like a Roman plan of a city, you know, with two main boulevards crossing each other perpendicular, the Decumano and the Cardo. And from here, from the Fountain of the Pila, that is the middle of the garden, you see on a distance the Square of the Revelations with a mushroom fountain. But allegorically speaking, you're not ready to go there immediately because you have too many sins. You're still a sinner. So from a passive purification, you have to start an active purification. You have to realize that you're a sinner and force yourself, give the back to the main goal, to the Square of Revelation, and force yourself to go to the labyrinth. You reach the labyrinth full of sins, completely confused on your mortal role or what you have to do in your life. You enter in the labyrinth, you get lost, and you can encounter 7 tricks like the 7 capital sins. If you go in one of them, you have to think of your sin, ask for forgiveness, and going back in the right track until you reach the middle tower. That's, of course, the allegory. And once you are on the tower, from the top of the tower, you have a clear view, allegorically speaking, of what you have to do in your life. And free of your sins, you proceed to the grotto, to the eremit grotto, to meditate on what you found and what you discover in the labyrinth path. Then you go to the Rabbit Island, that is considered it represents the life, the mortal life, because it's a place limited in space and time. Then you go on the other side of the boulevard to the monument to time, that instead he has no limit in space and time, and so it represents the soul. So after doing the body and the soul, you go back in the main boulevard to the fountain of the water tricks. Here, if you are an arrogant, presumptuous, you see some nice stone benches, you sit down, you say, okay, I'm done, I'm purified, I can now relax. And the water tricks will wet you and say, no, don't be arrogant. You are not done yet. Get up and keep walking. So you keep walking, you go toward the Square of the Revelation, but before the Square of the Revelation, there is a stair with a sonetto. Here, if you are too much in a hurry, you don't want to read the sonetto, or you just don't realize about the writing on the stairs, and you want to proceed to the final revelation, another water games will block you. A wall of water will block you and say, no, take your time before you have to read your sonetto, and only then you have the rightness to access the final revelation on the Square of the Revelation. And so once you read the sonetto, you can finally go on the Square of Revelation and apparently have the final revelation.
Yes, I mean, I love all this because there's all these challenges on the way as you're walking through the gardens.
Yes.
I love this idea of the staircase of the sonnets and the tricks that it plays on you. So I think people will be really interested in that. It's something that
I think is among the symbolic and allegoric garden is one of the most important, because still now, after 358 years of history, you can still walk through and see all the symbolism and allegory wanted by the original owners.
Yes. And your family, I think, bought the property. Was it your grandfather who bought the property?
Yeah, it was my grandfather that bought the property from the Donat delle Rose, another Venetian family, in 1929.
So you have grown up in this garden, I guess.
Yes. Even if I left for United States for studying, but then I was most of my time here, especially nowadays.
So you know all the best places to hide in the garden.
I guess so.
So this year, we're so excited because your gardens are taking place in World Topiary Day, which is something that it was an idea I had for Levens Hall and Gardens here.
Fantastic.
So I know that at Levens Hall and Gardens, the topiary is very much about shapes, about animals, birds, different geometric shapes. But your topiary is very different, isn't it?
Yeah, we don't have any really. We have geometrical shape. Let's put it that way. We have mainly big wall. Okay, first of all, the main topiary is only in boxwood, so there is no yew tree. mainly boxwood. There are very few plant of yew tree that are being made in topiary, but mainly it's boxwood plant. We have 60,000 square meter of this kind of plant, so it's the highest concentration in the world of this kind of plant. And most of them are cut in big wall, like we have some wall of boxwood high as almost over 5 meter high and long more than 50 meters and thick probably more than 3 meters. And then we have pyramids, some sort of like we call it cloud, because some of the boxwood are just cut as cloud, as big, huge, soft cloud.
Japanese style, really, isn't it? Yes.
What? I'm sorry.
That's kind of the Japanese style of topiary.
I guess so. I don't know. Yes, probably. Oh, you're right. But we don't have any birds. We don't have any, other type of animals or things. Mainly are geometrical things, rectangular pyramids, cloud, big cloud, and big walls.
Yes. And am I right in thinking that some of this represents the alleyways of Venice?
Yes, well, and since we have this huge plant of boxwood that are over 400 years of age and they reach 5 meters of height, they were able to build this like little Venetian alley, La Calle Veneziana, that goes through not diagonally but longitudinally the garden for 350 meters, and is pretty much 1.6 meter of width. So you can see it reproduce a little alley of Venice, La Calle Veneziana, that normally is through between buildings.
Yes. Oh, that sounds really interesting. And so how much work goes into maintaining the topiary?
Well, the topiary in general, I mean, the pruning in general of the boxwood takes pretty much 7 months a year, because for pruning pretty much 60,000 square meters of boxwood, and we have only two really specialized pruners or topiary person, and they pretty much cutting in rotation all year round. Yeah, with the exception of 4 months, 4 or 5 months, because it's too hot, or there is the spring, or it's too cold, then we stop. Otherwise, in rotation, we keep cutting and cutting and cutting.
Yes, because at Levenshall Gardens, they close in October, but they start the maintenance sort of September time, and they go through the winter and get ready for opening.
Well, because there are some there are some topiary like the one that we do, especially the geometrical one, that they are very much time consuming if you want to do it in a good way, because you cannot just cut on the old. Many topiary, they tend to cut on the old cut. So it's much easier because the boxwood or the plant or the yew tree is pretty hard, and you pretty much lay on top of it the blade, and you just follow the old cut. And so that's fairly easy, let's put it that way. But when you do geometrical things, if you keep doing in this way, eventually the geometry will be gone. So you need to put again the wire, the whatever, the plumps, and all the levels in order to not to follow only your eye, but to follow really what is the real geometrical thing. So it's much more time consuming to do it sometimes.
Definitely. So what other species of plants and trees can people see in the gardens?
Well, we have over 100 different types of species of plants. They're coming pretty much from all over the world. We have mainly evergreens. So cedar, Lebanon cedar, Atlantic cedar, deodara cedar. Then we have, of course, yew tree, boxwood plant, and then of course we have also many other type of pine trees, many other type of cypress, and Calocetus decurrens, white magnolia, Magnolia salunginea. And then we have Langostrema indica, Photinia cerulata. We have many different kind, and of course we have some maple trees and some hornbeams, a lot of hornbeams, because all the shadow holly are made of hornbeams, white hornbeams.
Sounds really interesting. And what's your favorite part of the gardens, and why?
I don't think I have really a favorite one. I like it pretty much whole. It's really, I don't I cannot say that there is one favorite for me. because all part of the garden, they have a unicity in it that make it particular every moment. So it's a tough question to answer this one.
Yes.
One thing that I want to point out to you, that we are not a flowering garden. That means we don't have a lot of flowers, because the Barocco garden, the typical Barocco garden, like the one that we own, the one the of Valsanzibio, is mainly many shade of green. Is not like the one of the late 1700, beginning 1800. It was more like English style or French style, with a lot of roses and many other type of flowering plants. Our flowering plants, there are some roses, of course, and there are some other small flowers, but mainly the flower that we have is the big trees that once in a while, in different time of the year, they are blowing. Like in spring, we have the Magnolia salungilea, they are in flowering, and then there is the Photinia cerulata, they're all white, or some other plants, and then we have in May the Magnolia grandiflora, they're flowering, and then maybe in August, September, the Langiostroema indica, that they are also flowering. But that's about it. We're mainly a evergreen and many shade of green garden.
Yes, which in itself is delightful, isn't it? Especially when the sun shines there. And
yes, well, I like it very much. I mean, I do like flowers, but I prefer the greenish things of a garden. But that's that's very depending on the taste of every person. There are persons that look for flowers, and in our case, there are not many. I just want to point out to you.
So, how many people visit the gardens each year?
Well, now, with exception of the pandemic time, of course, we are settled pretty much a little bit over 50,000 people every year.
And are they coming from all over the world to visit
Pretty
you?
much 50-50. Let's say that it was 50-50 before the pandemic. Now is a little bit. Now it's taking again back the foreigner. It was last year's. It was more Italian than foreigner, just because they were still not traveling.
Yes, yeah. And do you open every day? And is there a
We are open every day, mainly with the ticket counter officially open is from the end of February, last weekend of February, until the 10th, normally the 8th or the 10th of December. But then by request, we are also open during the winter for groups and also for single people from 11 until, of course, 4 o'clock, because in the winter time there is less light during the day.
Yes, yeah. And have you ever visited Leven's Hall and Gardens?
No, unfortunately, never. But I saw it on internet on your website. It's fantastic, and I will definitely want to come one of these days. As soon as I will be able to come to England, I definitely will want to make
that would be great.
a stop over your garden, because it looks beautiful.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And I think it will be a contrast to yours, but there will be some similarities as well.
Well, I mean, of course.
Yeah. So do you think it's a good idea for gardens to come together on World Topiary Day?
Well, I think it's always a good idea to come together, because the union makes the strength. I don't know if you say the same thing in English, but so in my opinion, it's always a good thing to get together. And of course, for this reason also, one reason is always important, but this one is very important, I think.
And I've seen that you lay on some special events, don't you? Sort of every month there's something happening.
Well, yes, we do some events, but it's not. My idea for this garden is, yes, of course, doing some once in a while. We are doing some events, but mainly I want to structure the place like an open air museum, so that since there are many unique things in it, I'm a little bit sometimes skeptical to make a place that they come for the event. They have to come. I want them to come for the garden and for all the peculiarity that we have in Valsanzibio. The event is just a little, a little piece of potatoes around the main course.
And if people do come for an event, can they hear?
Oh yes, they do. We sometimes we make some events, like we're doing yoga day, or we're doing sometime the people that are masked with a 17 with the Barocco dress, they come and they do some ballet or some other things, and of course it's an attraction for the public. But again, I'm more Yeah. My idea is more that is they should come to visit like this unique place, and not for the event, but for the event is something that is something in plus, but not the main reason.
You're more of a purist. You want people to appreciate.
Well, yes. I think we sometimes the event takes away the attention to the main course.
Yes. And you want everybody to go through this this journey to enlighten.
Well, I mean, this place is really unique. You cannot see in other place in the world something like this, because not in other place in the world they have maintained the structure, original structure, because many garden has been, have some variation through the years due to new ownership or damage during the war or some other things that were not reestablished. And so maybe you can see everything through books and virtually, but not in reality. Here instead you can see all the plan originally made by the Bernini, inspired by San Gregorio Barbarigo, and you can do this journey actively and not only on theoretically.
And I think something we haven't really touched on is the fact there are so many statues as well in the gardens, aren't there?
Yes, in the garden there are over 60 statues, big statue, and many other small one, and masquerade. I don't know how you really translate in English. They all were made in pietra d'Istria, Istria stone. That was the typical stone used by the Venetian to make their palace and their statue, and all carved by Enrico Merengo, an important sculptor of those time in the Venetian area. And they are all scattered all through the garden, and of course they work in concert with the main allegory, the path of salvation, and sometimes they have also symbolism on their own. So they are mainly mythological statue that they are placed at the service of the Catholicism.
Yes, and they have inscriptions sometimes, don't they? That
all of them, they have an inscription. Actually, now we are restoring them all, thanks to a grant from the European community, and so they're being all clean, and all the inscription has been underlined in a sense, so you can see them really much better.
Do you have a favorite inscription?
There are a few. I hope I'll remember on my mind. But anyway, there is one very interesting. Well, there are more than one actually. One is very interesting, is the statue of Apollo, the goddess of the sun, and I don't really now remember on my memory what it says, the inscription. But it says something: "Il sole soles e non è solo." That is, the sun. In order to be the brighter star in the sky, you have to be by yourself. So the reason why the sun is so bright is because by himself in the sky. And that symbolized the Barbarigo family. The Barbarigo family decided not to build their own house, their own country house on the Riviera del Brenta, where all the other Venetian nobili family were building, because otherwise there would have been one in many other. Instead, in Valsanzibio, for the reason they were by themselves, of course, they were the brighter star in the sky. and then there are another two very nice, that there are two, apparently on the pavilion of Diana. On the top there is Diana, of course, the goddess of the hunt. Then there are two female deers on both sides, because she was the goddess of the hunt. And then there are two dogs on the farther side, that at the first hint you think they are the hunting dog of Diana. But if you see them carefully, they look like they are looking at Diana, but they are not hunting dog, but they are guarding dog. They are mastini napoletani, because they have a very high color. And the writing says, one says, in battle loyal we are, something like that, and the other one say, and the one that watched the south and watch Rome, he says loyal something, because he underlined the fact that the Barbarigo were loyal to the Catholic Church and to the Pope. The other one instead is looking at the north, and not really at Diana, but the north. And under the writing says the hell and something like that, because they underline that the Barbarigo are against the Protestants, because Martin Lutero had just just made the Protestant movement. And so this is a political type of message. The Barbarigo were saying, no, we are loyal to the Catholic and to the Pope and to Rome, and we are against Martin Lutero and the Lutherans. So that's very interesting, because everybody thinks those are hunting dogs, and they are not. So this is a political message. Then there are another two very nice writing of the statue. One is the statue to time, the monument to time, that says volan con l'ora e fuggo gli anni. That says the monument to time represents Kronos, the goddess of time, that is leaning on the hour clock, to symbolize time. Is bent under the weight of the years, because he has a huge stone on top of his shoulder that represents the years, because he has 12 faces, like the 12th month of the years. And according how these faces are getting struck by the light of the sun, some faces are darker and some are brighter, telling you that some years are good and some other are not as good. Then he has the wings, because it tells you that times fly and the hours and the year pass by very fast. And the face is toward the sundown, because it tells you seize the time, carpe diem, because time goes by very fast. And there is this writing that says volan con gli anni le ore e fuggono gli anni, that says that the time passed very fast, and hours and years are going by very fast. So remember to do as much as you can in this life, because it's very, very fast. Everything will go in a moment. And then finally, the last writing is in the sonetto, that the last two verses of the stairs say, qui della corte il fulmine non sode, ivi è l'inferno e qui il paradiso. They say, here la corte is referred to Venice, so here all the problems and the trouble of Venice, they are there. We don't hear anything of those problems here in Valsanzibio. There in Venice is hell, and here is paradise. And once you read these final two verses, in theory and in practice, the water games of the sonetto, the stair of the sonetto will close himself, and it will allow you to go to the Square of the Revelations.
And arrive in paradise, yes.
And arriving in paradise, yes. At least have a sensation of paradise.
So if a visitor is staying somewhere like Venice or Verona, as many UK tourists might be, is it easy to get to you by train?
Unfortunately, it's not that easy, because we have not many public transportation. You can get nearby, because the nearest station is in Termugane, that is well served. There are a lot of trains going there. But then you are about 9 kilometers away from the garden, so it could be a long walk. Unfortunately, from there you have to arrange for a shuttle, or there is a possibility. There are some agency, they rent you out the bikes, so with the GPS, so electrical bike. So that is, if it's a nice day and you are not in winter and you like to bike, then it could be also very nice, because the region is very nice to go walking or biking.
Yeah, but otherwise you have to hire a car, or
otherwise you have to hire a shuttle, and if you contact us, we will give you all the information for how to contact, and it costs probably around another 25 euros one way for 5 people, for a little mini van that takes 4 to 6 people.
Yes. Okay. And so finally, could you summarize why you think every garden lover should come to Valsanzibio?
Well, again, as I told you, because it's a unique place. I mean, it's not only a garden, but it's more than a garden in a sense, because there's symbolism and all these allegory that are still readable, and those are unique. And then, of course, there are, from the gardening point of view, a lot of species of plants. Most of our plants are original. That means they were planted between 1665 and 1669. So they're estimated to be between 370 and 410 years of age.
Yes.
It's the place where you can see the highest concentration, as I told you, of boxwood plant, and among the biggest and the tallest. And then, of course, you can see also many other plants, local plants, that were they were already present when the project of the Bernini was made. Like some yew tree that go up to 900 years of age, some oak tree of 600 and over year of age, and the labyrinth is considered one of the oldest in the world, and is all original made of boxwood plant. Most of them are the original one, and is about 1.5 kilometer in length, and is a real labyrinth because people can get lost. In fact, we had in the past many problems with the labyrinth because some people were polite and they were getting lost and waiting until somebody was taking them out. Some other instead were going panicking and they made some damages. So in fact, now we don't allow it anymore going in the labyrinth if there are not the personnel in the middle tower.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know all about that because I promote some mazes in Britain, like on farm attractions, and people regularly get lost in those.
Yes.
Right. Well, thank you. That's been a delightful sort of explanation about your gardens, and I'm sure lots of people will be wanting to visit. So thank you very much for your time indeed.
Thank you to you and to your public, and I hope one of these days I will have you as a guest in Valsanzibio. Okay?
Oh, I hope so. Yes, because I love to go to Bologna. It's not that far from Bologna.
No, it's not that far away. It's about 85 kilometer, and also it's pretty easy because it's all highway.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so it's pretty direct.
Yeah. So I shall have to try that. Thank you
Okay.
so much once again.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Okay. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
I really hope that you enjoyed listening to this podcast as much as I loved recording it. I'm sure you can imagine that I'm wondering how to take up the invitation to visit as fast as possible. I just need to pick up that courage to travel solo once again, which I haven't done since the pandemic. If I do, of course, I'll be sure to let you know how my adventure goes. In the meantime, stay safe and stay well. And remember that life's much more fun when you're poodling around.